live from Tournament de Pizza. Before we introduce our guest, Caleb, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Over under 16 minutes that Matt lasts. Does he get fired over or under the 16 minutes? Because there's so many things I already know what he's going to throw at
The
for.
pressure's off. Usually I'm the star. I don't have to do anything for the next 30 minutes. Like, we actually have a legit star here. I don't have to play one.
Let me turn this mic.
I said after 16 minutes.
Let's welcome back to the program Ronnie Marmo, who we met on Radio Row in Los Angeles just a couple months ago.
That's it.
And I remember you saying, "Yeah, I'm coming to Tampa." I'm like, "Oh, I got plenty of time to watch Godfather." I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
Oh, man.
Randy, remember what I said to you, right?
I didn't watch it, but I'll watch it before you.
Had I known this, I wouldn't have shown up.
But
I
you
would
watched
blame
it?
you. I understand, but Joe's in Godfather 3.
Well, I understand.
Joe Mantegna, but it doesn't matter if I'm in it. I mean,
Come on, you got to see that.
we had a commitment, and you broke it,
But
Randy.
I was honest with you. I'm going to watch it before
You were honest after I'm sitting here. You should have told me over the phone. It's easy to be honest when I'm here.
You didn't ask me. You didn't ask if I
Because
watched it.
now if I leave, I'm the jerk. See how that works?
No, I would deserve it, but I will watch it. I promise you, I will watch it before you step on stage at the Straz Center on Saturday.
Really?
All right,
I
that's
promise
fair.
you that.
Okay. There's going to be a quiz.
Paragraph.
Yeah, that's right.
Which one do I have to watch?
Well, one and then two. Well, one and then two.
Get the
I
two.
gotta watch them both.
Yeah, you gotta. Sure.
Yeah, how can you?
Gotta have a good
man.
Honestly, when you finish the first one, you're going to want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the second one's the best one of all.
Well, I thought
And I
because that was in there.
don't think anything's ever been better than The Godfather 2 since then. I don't think anything's come out to
I'd
replace
rather
it.
go back and watch all your episodes of General Hospital.
Well, that would take an afternoon for sure. 150 of those.
So you're in town.
Yes.
For the big show at the Straz, 2 performances on Saturday.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about a lot of things, but let's talk about the show on Saturday. I'm not a comedian. I'm Lenny Bruce.
Okay, yeah, I'm playing Lenny Bruce. It's a one-man show directed by the great Joe Mantegna, and Lenny was he was an important guy. He died in '66. If you like George Carlin, you like Richard Pryor, you like all those guys, they have Lenny to thank for kind of passing the torch. And I'm excited to bring it to the Straz. It's a beautiful theater, and 2 performances. It's a 90-minute one-man show, no intermission, just me. And Randy, if you've ever wanted to see me naked, you have an opportunity. I start to play dead
I can't
naked.
get that vision out of my head.
I start to play dead naked on the toilet, and it doesn't let up. And I'm not kidding, actually.
No, I saw you on one of the TV shows, I think it was 2 days ago, or time flies, and you were talking about how you've been involved in this for a long time. Talk about, that process of when you first started, this project to this tour.
About 15 years ago, this great comic came to me and said, "Do you know who Lenny Bruce was?" And I said, "Well, I'm a little too young, but I kind of know his name." And he said, "There's a play that someone else wrote. It's a one-man show. I think you should do it. It's called Lennys Back and Boise Pissed." That's the name of it. It's very funny. So after 2 years of talking me into it, because I was nervous about it, I did the show. Ran for 6 months. It was a great hit. And I fell in love with Lenny. But the problem was we weren't doing his material and his routines. We were just kind of talking about stuff as opposed to living the journey, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I started to feel like, wow, I'm almost doing him a disservice if I'm not telling warts and all, So I went back and I went to Kitty Bruce, Lenny's daughter, and I got the rights to the bits and the material, and I spent 5 years writing my own play. Wow. And then we opened, I guess we're coming up on 5 years ago. Crazy. It's ran for a year in New York, a year in LA, a year in Chicago, and now we're touring. So,
is it important for that show to be at this time, in the world and what's going on?
1,000,000%. I mean, it's in so many ways we've regressed. It's like Lenny Bruce he got arrested for saying curse words. I don't know if you know who Lenny was.
I heard about that.
Yeah, he got arrested for curse words on stage, but really it was so much more than that. He was just such a, he held a mirror up to society, and he fought for free speech all the way to the Supreme Court. He lost. He got sentenced to 4 months on Rikers Island for words. I probably can't say it on the air. I don't know.
You definitely can't.
Starts here.
I've slipped up a couple times.
Starts with a C, ends with a, anyway.
Yeah.
So he got arrested for that, and he never did the time. He died of an overdose at age 40 when he was out on appeal. But he's still the standard. Things that just happened with Will Smith and Chris Rock, it's still happening. People, if they don't like something, and the cancel culture, if they don't like something, they just try to stop it as opposed to having the freedom to say it. You know.
Give me, because I wanted to ask you about that, your opinion of what did happen with Rock and Will Smith.
My thought is that as an Italian-American man and, machismo, I'd love to stand up for my lady, of course. But the truth is, it was completely inappropriate. You can't just go smack a guy in the face because you don't like what they say.
Yeah.
Now, Lenny Bruce used to say, I have a right to say whatever I want, and my boss has a right to fire me. So in other words, he believed in consequences as well. It wasn't just say what I want and screw you. But I think what happened that night is just unacceptable for all the comics. I mean, look, it just happened to Chapelle last week. You should be able to say, if you're mean-spirited, that's another discussion. Don't buy a ticket.
Thank you. I was just going to say.
Don't buy a ticket.
Paid to be here.
You know, I go to Adam Hunter. I go and see Adam Hunter a lot. He's a really good friend of mine. And when somebody starts heckling her, I don't like, and he's like, you bought a ticket to come see me. It's a comedy show.
Yeah, you came here.
I don't.
But
like
also
that.
these award shows, the host is kind of set up in a way where he's supposed to roast everybody.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure there were other people in the audience that night, big stars who didn't like the joke, but nobody got up and cracked them in the chops, and you just can't do that. It's unacceptable.
We'll get back to talking about Saturday, but we have found out that you are a huge sports fan.
Yes.
So you pick the sport, and then we'll talk about something.
I'm the biggest Yankee fan in the world, so let's put that aside for a second, because I'm literally been voted the biggest in the world. But
Let me call David Wells real quick. Who
on.
lives locally.
yeah, is he still drunk from that perfect game?
If I could pitch a perfect game, it wasn't allegedly. If I could pitch a
I'm just
perfect
trying to
game,
protect him over here. I got to do some.
He was great.
I don't know.
Yes,
that's
I love
not
it.
even my favorite David Wells story. My favorite David Wells story is when he was in Toronto, and the manager came out to take him out of the game, and David didn't want to leave the game, and he put his hand out for the ball, and David threw it down the right field line.
Oh yeah, no, I remember
That's
that.
the best. That's the best. So
Well, I appreciate actually what Caleb was talking about earlier about Pat. From what was he playing for now?
Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, because I'm a Clipper fan. I live in LA.
Yeah.
So I love this guy.
Yeah.
And so it's weird. You brought it up, and so I was thinking about it. I just thought on one hand, being in the industry, you can't disrespect your fellow artists and sports players. On the other hand, it's slightly refreshing to hear somebody tell their truth. I'm so sick of canned answers, so it's a weird place to be because I understand, you can't disrespect another guy that way, and it's also nice to not hear a canned answer.
Yeah.
And there's a weird balance, and I understand that it's not right or wrong. Everyone was shocked, and then I like what Barnes said. He was like, "Hey man,
There's to know your place. Like,
know your place. We're role players," he
Yeah.
said.
You shouldn't talk about
So
it.
that's how I feel about that. It's a weird position.
I agree with you 100%, and I think people are a little bit more abrasive to what he said because of who was saying it. Because you can look at it in the sense of the guys NBA on TNT, the Chuck.
Best show on
Shaq.
TV, by the way. It's
Amazing.
my favorite show on TV.
Amazing, but they, they criticize players really harshly. They criticize guys and say, "Man, he's terrible. He's soft." They, they go in on certain guys who they feel aren't living up to the standard, and people kind of let it go and don't come at because again, it's Hall of Famers. It's Charles Barkley
you're not
and
going after
Shaq.
him.
Like, what are you going to tell Shaq? Shaq's like, "You're terrible." What are you going to say to him? But coming from Pat Bev, so it was just for me. It was just a dynamic. It was interesting to kind of see. It's like it's already hard to be in the media and to ask those questions because a lot of guys who are in the media didn't play, and it's like a guy can be like, "What do you don't know about this," and then to be a former player or current player talking about it, it's like a very fine line to toe, and so it was just kind of interesting to see and to see the reactions from people.
And Chris did a lot, not only on the court, but he does a ton off the court for these players.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know what his position is in the NBA.
He's the president.
He's president, right.
And they're the best player association in
Yeah,
sports.
so I think you really need to be careful when you're throwing Chris Paul under the bus because he's done a lot for Pat, whether it's on the court or not. I mean, this guy does so much. And, Bev's one of those guys that if he's on your team, you probably love him.
Love him.
And the rest of the league probably hates his guts. And I get it. He's one of those guys.
Sure, he's one of those guys.
Jensen.
Yeah. Ryan Jensen.
Ryan Jensen, the center for the Bucs. He was with the Ravens, and everything about him you would hear from media is like he's a mean guy, dirty player. one of my favorite teammates I've ever had.
Yeah.
The nicest guy.
He's the nicest
He's
guy.
so nice. Great family.
Yeah.
Always just like, when you're on his team, you love him. If you're not, you go, he's just a pest, you know? So it's like, I understand.
Well, there's a
the
list of
sentiment.
them. Lenny Dykstra, who
Yeah,
played for the Mets.
Mets.
I hated the guy until he went to Philadelphia.
Yeah,
Then it's
yeah.
like Lenny Dykstra
Yeah, yeah.
is now with the Phillies. But what's funny, and I can relate to that, is Kenny Florian, who was with the UFC, and then he became media. But while he was with the UFC as a fighter, he would get on me because I don't like picking fighters. I don't like picking fights, especially with my relationships, and a lot have become friends. And, there's a fine line
Yeah.
and, being honest and, covering for your guy, until Kenny became media. And then he came to me and goes, I get it now.
Yeah.
You don't want to lie in a particular fight, and you and I have talked about this, Caleb. I don't think this guy's going to win, but he's like one of my closest friends. What do you do?
Yeah, it's hard because you want authenticity. I mean, it's very attractive to see people telling the truth, but I think there's versions of that. You could still be a gentleman and tell the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could find a way. I mean, I see fellow actors, and some people I'm like, I'd like to say, how'd they get that job? Can't even act wet in a pool, this guy, But instead I say, you know what, the right opportunities come to you. You find a way to say it and still...
So I've always been curious of people in the New York area, the New Jersey area. How does it happen? You're a Yankee, not a Met. You're a Giant, not a Jet.
It happens a lot of different ways. My dad was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, and when they left Brooklyn, he became a Yankee fan. My brother's a huge Met fan. We grew up in the same house, so it's very funny. And there's something about those pinstripes, and how it happened for me was. I think it was 77, Bucky Dent hit the home run, and I wore the black stuff under my eyes the next 3 weeks to school every day. I was 7 years old. I'm like, Bucky Dent! I was him for Halloween every year, and I just actually, Lee Mazzilli and I have become pals, and he just did he came to see me do Lenny Bruce in West Palm a few months ago, and Lee Mazzilli was a Yankee, and I met, So yeah, no, I'm a Yankee fan through and through.
So what's that like as a Yankee fan when somebody you liked as a Yankee now becomes, goes to the arch rival?
I'm going to steal a line from Seinfeld. You root for the laundry. You root for the uniform. There's only a couple of guys that like A-Rod, I never got behind as a Yankee. It never was. Every time he got up, I was like, I don't want to watch this guy. So A-Rod never was a Yankee to me. But most people, like a Rodman or guys like that, they end up on your team. You're like, I love this guy, but you hate him otherwise, like we just said.
We need to go hit this break real quick. But see, I'm the exact opposite. I don't necessarily root for the uniform. Caleb went to the Saints. I'm not a Saint fan. I could care less.
Well, because you have a personal connection.
Right, and I'm saying a lot of that, so it's a little different, but very similar. When Dykstra came, I hated him. Now he's a Philly.
Yeah, he's the best. Yeah.
All right, let's go hit a quick break. Coming to you live from Tournament da Pizza. This is Knockout Radio, brought to you by 8 Man Strong and Staff 7. We'll be right back.